Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. One of the things you'll notice about various sports talk shows is everybody's got a hot take, but what they rarely do is go back and check their receipts. What did you say? Who did you predict? How do you stick with that prediction now? How do you feel about that? So we're gonna do that today. Back in October, at the beginning of the NBA season, we went through our predictions for various roles and MVP, rookie of the year, things like that. And we're going to go back today and see how we did.
Yep.
So let's start out with the MVP. I predicted. Well, let's start with you because yours was pretty right on. Although you weren't going out on a limb, you predict the Joker.
Yep. And I would not change that.
And I predicted Jason Tatum. My theory being he would be the best player on the best team in the NBA, and the voters tend to look for new blood. I argued that why did they give it to Embiid last year when Jokic kind of outplayed him? They're tired of giving it to
Well, let's be honest too, Mark. There's another reason you picked Tatum, is you happen to be a huge Celtics fan. Let's be
yeah. I'm a homer, but
look at the shirt you're wearing, for God's sake. Come on now.
So actually, I'm not usually a homer. I mean, I
know. You're usually pretty tough on your team.
I decided in that episode I don't want to jinx my teams. I decided, not jinxing my team hasn't gotten me anywhere anyway, so I might as well predict what I feel. I still feel, best player on the best team is looking pretty accurate. Right now, they have a 4-game lead over the second best team in the NBA.
Right.
Anyway, my revision, I still feel that the NBA voters want new blood. And if you really think about whose team would be the worst without him, would you correct your Jokic prediction?
No, because they're pretty loaded. Although, I mean, again,
Right.
It's always going to default back to me with the Joker. Is he a generational talent that is in his prime? And so he just, by default, if Embiid's not, and he's injured again, if Embiid's not playing, Tatum's amazing. He just is not. I just don't know. The Celtics are pretty loaded too. I don't know.
So my revision though is going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, that guy's averaging 31 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists.
Yeah.
And imagine that team is better than the Nuggets right now in terms of record.
Yeah.
And look at where they'd be without him. They would be a lottery team for sure. I mean, they have good young talent, but they wouldn't be putting it together like they are now. So I'm revising my prediction to Shai, but not giving up hope. Like, imagine if the Celtics finish 8 games ahead of the second place team, and the Nuggets fall off a little bit, and the OKC falls off a little bit. They could decide. Look at the Celtics team. Tatum's been sacrificing because what he does, he doesn't even get involved. He gets others involved the whole first quarter, and he's doing some amazing things this year. He's an amazingly efficient scorer, with one huge exception that will probably be his undoing. Is he gets 3-point, his step back 3-pointer. He doesn't give up on that shot. Like,
he falls in love with it a little bit. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and the rest of his game is amazing. He is an amazingly efficient scorer, getting to the hole, stuff like that. But anyway, enough about that. I think it's probably coming down to Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but I'm not giving up on my Tatum prediction if things fall the right way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's a good call. I mean, we'll see how this all plays out. Embiid was the guy that I thought might be competing with Joker on this, and he's obviously, because he's injured now, he's out. So.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a new rule. If you miss 15 games, you're not eligible for awards. Even before his latest injury, he only could miss about 4 or 5 more games. So he's officially eliminated. Okay. But yeah, he's having an amazing year as well, and that team wouldn't be much without him.
That's right.
Rookie of the year, I think we both agreed Wembanyama, and I said that by the end of the year I'd be able to pronounce it, and I'm not going to do it again, but I think I said the name right.
You did pronounce it. So I'll use his first name. So I agree with you. I don't think we changed this when we both had the same person, right? I think everyone on the planet that knows just a little bit about basketball probably had the same one, right? But it was interesting to me. I was doing some research, and it said he's one of only 6 players already, this is his rookie year, to have in league history to have matched points, rebounds, assists, and block shots. The totals.
Oh, Oh, gotcha. So when you combine all those things,
Yeah. He's one of only 6 players in the league to ever have done it, and he's a rookie.
oh wow. Yeah, and what's scary is he's a better shooter than I thought. What's limited is his when he tries to drive, he's a little sloppy, and those things will come with work, you know.
Right.
Once he polishes his game, he's going to be absolutely
Yeah,
scary.
he's still a little awkward. I don't know if you watch him a little bit awkward, but a guy we probably should mention quickly though is a strong number second. I think is Chet Holmgren from OKC.
Agreed, but I don't count him. He's been in the league 2 years, you know, like just because you had a bad rookie year where you were injured the whole year doesn't mean you know, what if you were a rookie and you weren't injured, but you didn't play the whole year, and then next year you play and you're great, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, but apparently he's because of the way his injury turned out, he would be considered for that.
He would be considered. Same way Ben Simmons was considered, and he got it over Jason Tatum. But let's see how that worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I know Chet he's good, but even when you look at numbers, you're right. He's a second. And there's some other players. Brandon Miller's looking really good. I didn't like him when we did a prediction in terms of receipts. I didn't like his game, but he's proving me wrong. Let's move on.
Yep.
Most improved players, kind of sleepers. Chris, you went with Cade Cunningham, Mikal Bridges, and Jalen Williams from OKC. One of them.
Right.
1 and 1A. I'll give you either of the two Jalen Williams from OKC. And I went with Scotty Barnes, Shaden Sharp, and Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, you got 2 out of 3.
Yeah, so Maxey by far he's an improved player. He's an all-star and a burgeoning superstar.
And where did you play? Forgot there's a little Jesuit school somewhere in California called Santa Clara. That's where he played, Jalen Williams.
Yeah, exactly, Jalen Williams. You have to go back to
the guy named Steve Nash, I think. But they're coming on. There's another guy that plays for the Warriors, I think, that went to the same school. So who knows?
Yeah, I think we did very well with all these.
Would you add any to these? Because I've got 2 additions.
A couple comments. Scotty Barnes is also that was a great pick.
Yeah, it was a great pick.
Mikal Bridges is actually down. I mean, he's having a great year, and when you look at his averages, they're up. But he scored 27 points a game with the Nets once he got traded last year, and he's down to 21.9. So
yeah, he's dropped off.
Really improved. And Jalen Williams is doing fine, 18.8, 4.5, and 4.0. But and then I predicted Shaden Sharp. His numbers are up, you know, from 9.9 points a game to 15.9, and he's averaging 5 rebounds, 2.9 assists. But he's been limited by injuries, actually just going under the knife for some kind of abdominal surgery. So that's probably not the best prediction. But when you look at revisions, Maxey's still at the top.
Yep.
Albert Sengun,
yes,
from Houston, is really blowing up.
That was one of my additions. It was 22 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists.
Yeah. How about this one? It's probably in his 4th year right now. Maybe, I don't know exactly, but Kobe White is having.
That's funny. I got the exact same one. Kobe White, 22 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. He's looking very impressive. I for whatever reason, I've been watching a lot of Bulls games recently, and he's unbelievable. And you can't miss him with that hair. So.
You ever notice how it looks like he's getting just absolutely beat up on the court out there?
Yeah, time? He does. He looks.
Well, so my son Peyton gave me a theory, and it's totally true. He only looks like he's getting beat up because when he flops his head back a little bit, his hair just moves like crazy. It's like
yeah, it looks like he's gonna have a concussion every time. Because right, it's the
hair. Yeah. So I think
I love watching him play because he's not only a great player, but I can tell just by his hair which guy. A lot of times I can't tell who's out there. So
I traded for him in fantasy. I can pick him out immediately.
Exactly.
And I think it's a strategy on his part to have that ridiculous haircut because, like I said, a little bit of movement, they think he's fouled. The refs will.
Well, he's come on. He looks like the DeRozan was supposed to be the guy there, but he looks like going to be the guy coming forward. So
yeah. So. Anyway, good calls there. I think we really knocked it out with those. We've done really well so far. With the exception of my Tatum pick, which still is about as.
No. I mean, Tatum's having a phenomenal year. I mean, I think he finishes in the top 2 or 3 if they had to take the vote right now. So
Most overrated player. Here's where I completely laid an egg, and it's really surprising to me, shocking. My theme with my most overrated was availability is the best ability. So I picked 3 guys who I said these guys won't play many games, and therefore they don't add value to the team. Paul George, Karl Anthony Towns, Kawhi Leonard. George has played 47 of 50 games. Cat has played 51 of 52 games, and Kawhi Leonard 46 of 50 games. So
yeah, but you were right. I mean, I think your instincts were spot on. Those guys are just, all of them are playing well beyond the number of games they typically do. I mean, when you said that, I said absolutely. I mean, the Clippers in general. Look at the Clippers. I mean, those 2 are on the court now, George and Kawhi, all the time. You put them with Harden, they look tough. We'll talk a little bit more when we talk about our teams in the conference finals, but they look tough.
Yeah, I still, I'm not worried about them coming out of the West. Something will happen. There's a ticking time bomb with injuries, and given that they've had huge success and nobody's been hurt for 50 games, watch out.
Okay, well,
anyway, but
you never know. Don't jinx the Timberwolves though. You never, and Cat. So
yeah, I won't. Okay, well, you're right. I was talking about the Clippers. You mentioned Russell Westbrook. I think, yeah, his numbers are way down. 11
but
points.
you know what? He's taken. I'll kind of fall on my sword there because I've been watching some Clippers games too. He's actually purposely gone to the bench. I mean, and he's basically said, I've done it all. I've won MVPs. But I want a championship ring. So he's pretty much deferred himself to leading that second team and coming in when necessary. So I think he's playing. He's not the same Westbrook he was a couple of years ago, but he's playing his role. I'll give him credit for playing a role, instead of having to be the star.
The tricky thing about when you say who's the most overrated is they have to be currently rated as high, and you think they're rated lower than what most people think. Whereas with Russell Westbrook, I think by the time you said he's the most overrated, in my book, the ship had already sailed, right? And the same with who I would revise my prediction to, or my who's the most overrated player in the NBA. But I think maybe the ship has already sailed on this guy, and people have come around. Is Andrew Wiggins? He's a complete bum. His head's not in the game. His numbers are horrible, and he's the reason the Warriors are mediocre at best. But I think people realize that now. I've seen him ranked as a preseason is ranked as the 35th best player in the NBA, and I don't think he's even the 35th best player on the West Coast.
I agree completely. Here's another. My change would be this one, in that it has a Warriors connection too, and that's Jordan Poole. Have you watched his game? Oh my God, he's not the same guy he was at the Warriors. I mean, he's lost all confidence. He doesn't even want to shoot the ball. I mean, he used to want the ball. He was like a mini Steph Curry. Do you remember? I mean, he was never going to be a Steph Curry, but he had that kind of confidence level and shooting capability when he was on. He has lost, for some reason, he's just lost out there.
A really good point. The Celtics played the Wizards last night. I was watching the game, and he was a non-factor. It was a close game. The Wizards were playing out of their head, and it was Corey Kispert and
Kispert is and Kuzma has played well this year, obviously, but he's just a non-factor. And you thought he was going to be the guy there, right? When that all went down. So.
Yeah. Moving on, we asked the question: who would be the next star other than Harden to ask for a trade? Because at the time, Harden already had, and he's obviously been dealt. I had said DeMar DeRozan. You said Rudy Gobert, that he wasn't a good fit. I think they figured out how to work him in.
Yeah, they have. I was wrong.
Because I'm not aware of anybody who's asked for a trade this year.
Yeah, well, I haven't either. The one guy I was going to mention, and maybe you have better insight into this, but Giannis these days is not the Giannis. For some reason, how do you get your coach fired and new coach in there? And he just doesn't seem. He's a great player, but he doesn't seem to care about winning the ultimate. I don't know. He doesn't look like the Giannis of 2 years ago in terms of his drive. I don't know what it is.
He's definitely still putting up the numbers, but funny story. I'm sure you're aware of this, related to Giannis. I'm sorry, related to the coaching chain is they have a rule in the NBA that the team with the best record at a certain point, that coach coaches the All-Star team.
Right.
Unless they did it the year before, so you can't do it back to back years. So it defaulted to the second best team in the East, not Joe Mazzulla again.
Right.
And so it was the Bucks coach, and the Bucks had just fired the coach. Doc Rivers comes in, guides them to a 1-3 record, and gets chosen as the guy to coach the All-Star team. So.
Yeah. Well, so, and from what I've heard, Giannis was the reason that change happened. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
I
agree. I don't think the trade deadline is passed, obviously, and so I don't think there's anything happening there. But you're right about the Timberwolves. They now know how to use Gobert, and they'll use Gobert with Cat at the same time, and pretty successfully.
Well, and a guy who's fringe MVP candidate now, and just 2 years. His aunt. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he's phenomenal. The dude can just shoot the ball.
Let's go back to our playoff predictions. You predicted Boston over Milwaukee in the East, Denver over Golden State in the West. I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Golden State. And you predicted Boston over Denver. I predicted Boston over Milwaukee, same as you.
Yeah.
I predicted Phoenix over Denver. That's looking a little questionable, but not out of the question. And then Boston over Phoenix. Do you have any predictions?
Yeah, I totally screws this one up. So my West now is the Clippers versus the Nuggets. I'm on the Clippers bandwagon. I don't know. Like I said, I've been watching a lot. Unless they get in, knock on wood, unless they get injured, they've got 4 guys that can play, and they got a really good supporting cast. And I just think they figured it out. And I think for whatever reason, Kawhi feels healthy now, and or motivated or whatever that is. So, and when he's playing, he's phenomenal. He's that good. So, and my second one would be, I think I had the Bucks and Philly. I'm not sure about the Bucks anymore. And Philly's obviously.
You had Boston over Milwaukee.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I had Cleveland now in there in that spot, playing the Celtics.
Boston over Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay. And then who do you have to win it all?
I got the Clippers versus the Celtics, and that's a toss-up. And I wasn't going to pick because I didn't want to either jinx you or be wrong.
You're worried about our new policy of going back and taking receipts.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Back testing is not kind to me.
I'm with you. The second seed in the East is completely up for grabs.
Yeah.
With the Bucks will still be in the mix. Philly if they get Embiid back,
right.
The Knicks, the Cavs. You can never rule out the Heat. Last year they came out of the play-in tournament and knocked off number 1 seed and number 2 seed. So, but I'm also going with Boston over Cleveland. Cleveland is quietly a very solid and scary team. They haven't been healthy. They just got Darius Garland back from a long injury stretch.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley. So.
And Mitchell's playing almost MVP level. I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's pretty good. But what about your surprise teams? The teams we didn't even mention.
Yeah. So, but I got to give your team some credit. In the West, I'm going with Denver over Minnesota.
Okay.
I think that the West is super up in the air among 4 or 5 teams that could come out of the West, and I think the injury bug will get to the Clippers. And I think Minnie is young, a combination of young and experienced and hungry. And so I'm going to go with that. And then I'm going to stick with Boston over Denver instead of Boston over Phoenix. Surprise teams. You had picked Orlando Magic. Wah, wah.
Yeah, that was terrible.
And I picked, check this out, the Knicks.
Well, you were right. You were right. Yeah, you were right. So now my new surprise picks are Minnesota and OKC and New York and Cleveland.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess to wrap it up, I had predicted the in-season tournament winner would be the Sacramento Kings. And my theory was it would be a team that it meant a lot to, a team that wasn't a true contender for the title, and it would mean a lot to. And look at the Indiana Pacers.
Yep.
They were a team that is not a true contender, and it meant a lot to. And I think the Lakers too. Like For whatever reason, Laker fans, like, they really cared about winning that silly tournament.
Exactly.
So I'm not really a fan of that tournament. I think the courts were absolute eyesores. I
Yeah.
couldn't watch the games, and they were actually slippery for some reason, and people were getting hurt.
Yeah.
So they got to do something about the courts. I mean, the fact that you knew it was an in-season tournament night when you saw those courts was nice.
Yeah.
And I was rooting a little extra, but frankly, the only thing I was rooting for, it's kind of like back in the 70s when you're watching Battle of the Network Stars and you decide to root for somebody. I mean,
Right.
it's a little bit of interest, but you don't give a rat's ass. I was rooting for the young players to get a lot of money. Like get $1 million per player or $500,000, whatever it is, for a guy on a two-way contract. That's huge, so.
It's big money.
So that's all I was rooting for. And then one other comment I think is ridiculous. So they have these 3 different pools and then 1 wild card team, but then they play the first round at a home site. So the Celtics won their pool and had to visit Indiana. Opposed to, why not send them to Vegas? Like, why, single game.
Right.
The Indiana fans were going nuts. Celtics would have took care of them in a neutral site.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
But I didn't care. I mean, what I care about, I also don't like the fact, maybe I overestimate the value of regular season games, but I hate any loss. And I hate strength of schedule inequalities. So the Celtics had to play 2 teams out of the final 8, whereas Philadelphia got to play 2 bad teams.
Right.
If it comes down to 1 game either way, it's like that's not really anyway. And the Knicks had to play the Bucks and the Celtics. So they went 0-2 in the in-season tournament. And look, the Knicks are battling for that number 2
Yeah,
seed.
they are. Yeah, well, you were definitely much more into it than I was. I mean, I don't even think I had
I wasn't
didn't even
into
have an
it.
opinion on it. Yeah.
I wasn't into it. I just kind of threw it out there almost as a joke. I think some fans it made a difference to,
Right.
and the ratings were pretty good, better than most regular season games. So that's nice. But yeah, I like it didn't draw. I didn't watch a single game. I watch every Celtic game, and that's all I watch. I didn't watch other teams because it was an in-season tournament.
Right.
But it was enough of a success for the league for ratings that I'm sure they'll do it again. I think they need to fix the court. And again, I would propose that all 8 teams go to Vegas for the playoffs.
And neutral site. Yeah, agreed.
So thank you, Chris. Very good show, and we'll be
Yep.
back soon, hopefully.
It sounds wonderful. All right, take care.